Fizer. I am Jaden's grandfather. Excuse me. And she's asked me to come here and talk about what I used to do for a living. I've been retired for quite a long time, and I'm a retired iron worker. And it's kind of different than being a retired steel worker. And the steel worker is an individual basically that works in a steel mill, and that's where they work at. But as an iron worker, you kind of belong to a union. I belong to an Iron Workers Union 395, which was out of Hammond. So I could work anywhere in the whole area that our local union can work at. And so I made a very good living out of that. For even you young girls and young kids, young boys, it's another way of having an occupation to make a good living for somebody that would like to do something other than maybe go to school. When I was young and I was in high school, I kind of really didn't want to go to school at the time. I just felt that I needed to do more. So I went through 3 or 4 different occupations before I got into ironwork. And it was something that I really enjoyed doing. It was more physical. And so, and in the process of that, I just learned to get along with a lot of people. I've done a lot of different things, worked in a lot of different areas. I worked in as being an iron worker as well as if you were a carpenter or electrician, being a union individual, such as we are. You could almost work anywhere in the United States. I mean, if work was slow at home, here in Northwest Indiana, you could go to Chicago and go to work, or go to Kentucky. If they had work in Kentucky, you could get set up to go to work there. So you could stay employed and have a good occupation. About 3 weeks ago, my grandson, who is an apprentice iron worker, called me and asked me to come to a union meeting with him. And I was kind of surprised when I went there. There were 3 young ladies that are out of high school that were apprentices in the apprenticeship program with the iron workers. So it's not only set up for boys to do this, it's set up for even young girls. Even though there are certain things that young girls can't do that boys can do, but it works out well. And we have all kinds of people that come in. Race is no barrier with regards to doing that. So if you thought race was a barrier, it's not a barrier. I've done a lot of, I was just telling your teacher here that I've been on a couple of jobs. Back in the early 70s, I worked on the Sears Tower, and I was way up on top, like 900 foot. In the very beginning, I was scared of height, but as time grew on, I learned to be able to understand what it was and try to be careful. So it was a big experience to go to work in Chicago, even though I was from Northwest Indiana, and work on a big high-rise building at the time. It was the tallest building in the world. And being up on top, it was just really, really different, to do that. And and there was another time that I had to work down in Indianapolis. A company sent me down to Indianapolis to work at the GM plant down there. And they had asked me, well, I shouldn't say that, the company knew that I had worked with helicopters before. And so I was asked to go down to Indianapolis to work with a helicopter, and we put up some really big, it was an extension on the top of the GM plant, which is in downtown Indianapolis. So those are things that, you might think of what you want to do today as, it's nice to be a baseball player, a football player. Believe it or not, when I was in high school, I was a very good baseball player. And the coach that we had used to be a scout for the Milwaukee Braves at the time, believe it or not, and he wanted me to do that, but I just wasn't into baseball. I mean, it was something that I didn't really want to do, even though I was a good baseball player. The work that I got some notes here, yeah. And then traveling around. I went down to Kentucky and worked at a powerhouse down in Kentucky. I also worked at a place called the Braidwood Nuclear Powerhouse, which is just south of Kankakee, Illinois, that I spent probably, 15 months working down there as a certified welder. In order to do that, you have to be able to really know what you're wanting to do and do it, and it takes a lot of time and patience in order to do that. all of these occupations, to some degree, are dangerous. No matter what you do, even people that work in the steel mill, or even your teachers driving back and forth, and you kids are on the school bus. Everything has its ability. But once we all understand what is going on and what the problems, the possibilities of getting hurt, then it makes it easier to do your job and have an occupation that you might like to do, you know? So I consider myself as a building trades individual, meaning that I belong to a local union. I was able to work almost anywhere in the world. I could go to work anywhere in the world, and it really made it convenient to know that if work what got bad here, I could go to California if they were looking for people in California to go to work, whether it would be on a bridge in California, or working on putting up a building in California, or like I went down to Indianapolis to work on the GM plant down there with a helicopter. And that was really a fun thing to do. I was telling your teacher that when I went down there, I worked with a fella that was with the Columbia Helicopter Service, and they were involved in making the picture of Starman. Back about 1981 or 82, the movie Starman came out with Jeff Bridges was the Starman. And so I happened to work with the fella that helped set up the program for them to make the movie with Starman. So I got to know these people. They kind of gave me baseball caps, and they had pictures taken with them, and the fella even wrote me a letter. So it's an exciting thing. You kind of do different things at different times, and it's really an enjoyable thing. But it's something that you have to want to go to work. If you don't want to work, then these occupations aren't a place for a person that doesn't want to work. I'd say, and I became an iron worker. When I got out of the service, and I went to work in the steel mill as a machinist. I got into the apprentice machinist program, and after being in it for about 15 months, that I realized that even wasn't something that I wanted to do. So I met somebody to get involved with the ironworking program, and so that's what I've done. I've been an iron worker for 50 years. I got a 50-year pin, so it's been a long time. I actually worked full-time 31 years, and then I spent almost 15 years of working part-time. It's been a challenge. I suggest that some of you kids, when you think about this, when you get older, that maybe you might want to do something. Get into the building trades. It might not be the right thing for you to become an iron worker, because you could become there are a lot of lady carpenters, you know, and there are a lot of lady pipe fitters that can do the work, and you can make a good living. You can make a very good living and have a good family living with all of that by doing all of those things. So that's about the best I can say out of that. Is that okay with you? Yeah. Yeah. It's been nice to see you guys. I really hope that you would think about this. You know, baseball, football, basketball, those are things that kids think about today, and they want to do that, but in reality, that's really not what goes on in life. As a general rule, very few, 1 in 2,000 might be able to become a good basketball player, or a football player, or a baseball player. You know, police officers and firemen, it's a good occupation, but there's just like with the ironwork or building tradespeople, they only take so many people in. So this is what really goes on.
I think we have a couple questions now.
Oh, you got questions? You got a question, young lady?
Was Starman a popular movie back then?
You gotta speak up.
Was Starman a popular movie?
The movie was called Starman. Starman. It was with Jeff Bridges. And the name of the movie, the company that made Starman, was Columbia Pictures. And the company that I was working for, I wasn't working for them. I was working for another company, but they hired Columbia Helicopter Service, that they flew the helicopter in from Seattle, Washington, to go to Indianapolis to put this building up over there. We had to pick up a lot of very heavyweight stuff to put it on top of the building. So I just happened to be working at the time, or knew how to work with helicopters. So the company asked me to go down there and work with them. Young man, the glasses.
Did you do that for a movie or not?
Did I do that for the movie? No, the movie Starman was made way before I became involved with that company that I got involved with. The fellow that was working on the roof, when I was climbing around and helping put some of the stuff up, he told me later that he was the guy that helped draw up the contract for the Columbia Helicopter company to work with Columbia Pictures to pick up the Starship. In the movie Starman, the Starman crashes on Earth, and then they have to go in and pick up that Starship and fly off with it, the helicopter. Well, the helicopter was a real helicopter, but it was just made as a movie, how they make the movie, to do that. So I talked to the guy that helped negotiate the contract with that. So I got to know these people a little bit for the 3 weeks that I worked with them. And it was very enjoyable, but it's a lot of work. You're busy, you're hustling, you're working all day. Go ahead. Yeah.
Did you ever actually work on a bridge in California, or?
No, I didn't go out to California, but you can, when work is bad, that'd be no more different than a school teacher if they shut the schools down and teachers get laid off, because that allows them to go to California. They might have to take some more testing, more schooling to work in that state. But as a building trades people, generally speaking, you don't have to do that. You can go from one area to another, providing that they allow you to come into there to go to work, to do that kind of work. Yes, young lady?
I don't really have a question, but my dad's an electrician.
Your dad's a what?
An electrician.
He's an electrician. So you kind of understand a little bit about what I'm saying? Does he work in different places in the area? Do you know?
He's working in Gary.
He's working in Gary. But he works for a particular company that allows him to work in this area, right? Cool, that's good. Young man,
My dad works at the steel mill.
you have to excuse me, I'm hard of hearing, a little
My
bit.
dad works at the steel mill.
Repeat that?
My dad works at the steel.
Your dad works at the steel mill? Does he? What does he do? Do you know?
He's an inspector.
He's an inspector. That's okay. Yes, young lady, you've had your hand up there for a while, I got you.
How old do you have to be an iron worker?
Well, what you have to do is you have to graduate from high school, and you have to try to keep good grades. And then what you have to do is then only once a year that you're allowed, don't mean it's how you're allowed. Only once a year that they allow people to come in and put an application in to work, to get into the apprenticeship program. Now, I was telling your teacher, Lisa, that this past year, they had 920 applications to get into the apprenticeship program, and they only accepted 25. And so that means that they want people that are smart, want to work, because they go back into their background and check them all out and find out what kind of person this person is, whether kids off of drugs, stay off of drugs, and all that kind of stuff. You can't do that, so. Yes.
My dad's an iron worker.
He is.
Boss.
He's an iron worker boss?
Yeah.
Good girl. What's his name?
His name is Brian Hauser. Brian Hauser.
Brian?
Brian Hauser.
Brian. I probably know your dad if I just right off the top of my head. I know so many people, I don't know. Well, it's nice to see you that you're here. Yeah.
What subjects do you have to be good at, like from school?
Speak up, young lady.
What subjects should you especially be good at?
Subjects for school that you should be good
Well,
at?
you just have to be a good student in school. There's no particular subject that you have to learn. You just have to be a good student in school. They want people that wanna learn. They want people that wanna learn. So if you try to get good grades in school, so when the time comes that you wanna do that, like I said, when I went to the union meeting, there were young women that were in there, and I was kinda surprised, because even when I was an apprentice, there wasn't any young women that came in to our program as an apprentice. But later on, next thing you know, I'm on a job, and there's a young 22-year-old lady that's in an apprenticeship program, and she's doing something. I mean, there's things that even young women can do, like being a good welder, or there's just different things that young women can do that, it's not as physical, but yet you can still do the work and still have a good occupation and, you know, whatever. Yes, young man.
My dad works at structural. I think he does stuff with concrete.
He works concrete?
Yeah.
And there's concrete, there's some ladies that I know they do concrete work and do rebar work,
Like
believe
when
it
you
or
were
not.
saying about the traveling, I'm used to that because he has to travel a lot.
Oh, really? Well, again, go ahead.
What's kind of like a statement, so, so a couple years after I was born in Vegas, I moved out here.
Okay.
And then as soon as I moved out here, my dad started being a, inspector. He like checks houses.
Okay.
And he inspected the house that my grandma just moved out of.
Oh,
So
really?
he just inspected that house.
Really? Yeah, the gentleman, kid in the back, the busher.
My mom's a local 150 operator.
And then raised.
I'm sorry.
My mom's a local 150 operator.
She's a work at 150 operator, your mother is. So that's just an example of what I'm talking about, because they have women and young girls and his mother is an operating engineer. So that's on a local 150. So those things are available and they're possible for you guys. You just have to wanna do that. Everybody can't go to school. Some kids don't have the money, some kids don't wanna do that, you know? So a lot of things that change your lifestyle, you know, but again, one more time.
My dad works in oil field in North Dakota.
He worked on an oil field in North Dakota?
Yeah. He's
Really?
A welder.
As a welder?
Yeah.
There you go. Those are the things, even young girls can do that. Yes?
I have two things. First of all, what was the scariest job that you've ever done?
The dangerous job? Well, I was just telling your teacher, I've almost gotten killed about 3 times. Believe it or not, I've almost gotten killed about 3 times. But some of this stuff is dangerous work, and it just depends. And you know, you're asking a question that it's hard for me to answer because I worked on the Sears Tower, and that's where I was up about 900 foot in the air, and there was nothing down below. And just something that I learned to do that I could accept that and I wasn't gonna fall. But I don't know. Like I said, I've almost gotten killed. But it was something that somebody else had done that caused me to get hurt. So, what's the most dangerous thing that happened? I think one of the times is I was working out at Bethlehem Steel, young lady, and I was connecting what they call connecting steel. You probably see the guys that are on each end and they're putting a beam in between stuff. And I happened to be there and the thing bounced off some iron, it hit me in the chest when I was hanging onto this beam, and it knocked me off and I fell about 20 foot, and I hit the top of this other beam and it busted all the bones in my foot, and I started to fall the rest of the way, which was about 90 foot to the ground, and I caught myself. And so I just ended up with broken bones in my foot. But so that's probably the most dangerous time or situation that, you know. Did I have a harness? No, well, when I was working, they didn't have harnesses, okay? Yeah, they didn't have no such thing as, today, you don't do that today. And so that is just something that's not in the picture anymore. Very seldom does you find that happening. When I worked back, 50 years ago, that wasn't the case. I mean, you just had a belt that had wrenches on it and different bolts and stuff in it, and you used that, and you had to physically climb the steel and hang on, and no harness, no safety. They didn't have safety back then. We had safety glasses if you went to work in the mill, but any place else, you didn't even have safety glasses. Sunglasses, that was probably the safety glasses that we had back then. So, just something different. How we doing, kids? Okay? Do you guys understand a little bit about what I'm going on? Your mother's probably works with iron workers, doesn't she? Yeah.
Kind of. They're like the grumpy people.
Pardon?
They're like the grumpy people, the whole group.
I'm sure she does. So that's good. That's good to hear. Yeah, young man.
How much money do you make?
No.
Well, how much money do I make? Well,
You do not have to answer that question. That is a
well,
question
I'm
that is
just.
off limits.
I will say this. I will say this with you. Right now, as an apprentice, they make very good money even as an apprentice. So by the time you got to become an apprentice, the prices, the wages will be up higher, it will be. I can't really tell you, or can't really explain to you what the prices are, but as an apprentice, they make a very good start in the apprenticeship program. Really, with all due respect, they make a good start in the program. Your wages are pretty good. My grandson, I was just telling your teacher, my grandson just got in, which is her cousin, just got in, it's Aaron. He just got in the apprenticeship program 5 or 6 months ago, and he's very happy with his income and what the money that he's making. And he's a very conscientious kid, and he goes to work every day, and he's working every day too. So that's about the best I can say. Anybody else? Okay. Thank you, guys. I hope you can